Hi everyone, it's Kenya with Root Rise Yoga. Thought I would bring you a short practice today, and we're going to focus on our hips. This practice was inspired actually by a good friend of mine who was saying, as I'm getting older, I'm noticing I'm losing some mobility in my hips, and I really want to regain that mobility so that I don't lose it forever. And I think we can all relate to that just a little bit. So where we're at today is we're going to do a standing practice, a short standing practice. So I invite you to follow me today. We'll be standing for about 15 minutes or so, and we're going to be focusing on our hips. So let's get started. As you can see, we're here on our mat, and as far as what we're going to need today, we're going to need a chair. You might want to choose to use a chair, and at least one block, a yoga block. And let me move this chair a little bit. So first, we're going to come to standing. You're going to need your yoga block handy. So we're going to come to standing. And we're going to, with some intention, really ground our feet. And so what does that mean? Lift up your toes, look down at your feet, spread your toes, feel the base of your big toe, lay that toe down, stretch your pinky toe forward and feel the base of your pinky toe on the mat. And then about 2/3 of your weight should be in your heel. And really think about the energy toning down into your feet. And let your hands come to your side. And let's just take a few breaths here. Shoulders up, down, and back. Feel kind of that settling into our feet. Be sure to check in with your knees. Sometimes I have a habit of locking my knees, which would look like this. And you can see I have a tendency to shift backwards and lock my knees. So let's bend our knees. And let's look at this from the side. Grounding our big toe, pinky toe stretches forward, 2/3 of the weight in our heels, slight bend in our knees, shoulders down and back, ear, shoulder, hip, kind of center of our feet. Ground, spread your toes, really engage those arches. And at your own pace, let's just take a few breaths here. Really feeling that breath. You'll notice here I've placed my hands on my hips with my thumbs wrapping around the back of my pelvis. Fingers are in the front of my pelvis on these bony hip points. And I'm breathing and just feeling the movement of my hands as they expand both front to back and side to side on an inhale. We have a soft belly, but we're not just dumping our breath into our front body, but that front belly is soft, and your breath descends down through your back kidney area, down through your back side of your pelvis and your hips, all the way down into our feet. Now we're also going to move our hands up here to our side ribs. Kind of wrap our fingers around our lower ribs, these side ribs here. And with intention, we're going to see how our breath moves into our hands here. The diaphragm descends down on the inhale, which allows an expansion forward, backwards, and sideways. Check in with your feet, check in with your knees, make sure you're still, you haven't lost any of that grounding, that foundation. Before we move into our chest, let's just wake up our chest a little bit with some tapping. So I've got my fingers and thumbs together, going to tap, 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 tap here at my breastbone. Tap, 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 all the way up through right underneath my collarbone. And this is just going to kind of send a signal to the nervous system, send a signal to our chest that we'd like you to be a little bit more awake, a little bit more active. It's also great tapping for your immune system, helps with your lymphatic drainage. So tap, 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 tap. So when you're ready, let's find that ground again. Toes, pinky stretches, toning down, knees slightly bent, shoulders down and back. Check into your feet are parallel. Now I like to hook my thumbs kind of under my armpits here and to where my fingertips can almost touch my collarbones. And while I'm not going to be raising up like this, conscious to keep my shoulders down and back, this really allows me on my next inhale, and whenever that comes, to feel that inhale with intention up into our chest. So, and feel if you can see some slight movement and expansion all the way up through underneath your armpits. Now finally, we're going to move up here to our forehead and our upper skull. So let's place our fingertips right here between our eyebrows. And we're going to find that ground again. Shoulder blades down and back. You might want to just give your neck right here, these bony ridges behind your ears, a little traction upwards to make sure you've got your head in alignment as well. So let's place those fingertips between our eyebrows and our forehead. Relax your shoulder blades, your shoulders. On your next inhale, we're just going to gently massage, and when the exhale comes, massage your forehead. And you might want to imagine a flower opening. Nice release. Feel the inhale all the way up through your cranium, opening up through the top of your skull. You may even want to have those fingertips lift, really engage your fingers on that next inhale. Pinky spiral in, thumb spiral out. Now let's put this all together. A real 3-phase, I guess we would call it, real integrated full body breath. Begins on your next inhale when the diaphragm descends, and your breath moves front to back, side to side, all the way down through your feet, but also a gentle rising all the way up through the cranium. So you have a grounding and a rising. So let's try that. And on your next inhale, let's try that one more time. Almost imagine a wave-like action happening all the way down from your pelvis, all the way up through your ribs, chest, into your cranium. And on your next exhale, when it comes, put your lips together, purse your lips together, and make a and this is where you can feel a nice cinching, or you may feel a nice cinching together of these deep abdominal muscles. That's a nice way to engage these deep abdominals with your sounding breath. And then at the end of that cinching, just imagine a nice zipper that zips up as well. So we have a cinching and then a zipping action. So let's put all this together. On your next inhale, when it comes, we'll be using this cinching and zipping today further in our practice. So just be mindful of the cinching and zipping action that really helps to stabilize your spine and your pelvis and lays the foundation for all the work that we're going to do today. So before we get started with some more standing, let's work with kind of loosening up our hips a little bit. So if you need to, let's move around and let's get your block. And this is where you may need your chair for balance or stability. So you may want to turn your chair around. And we're going to place our block down. And we're going to place, for now, we're going to place our left foot on our block, middle of our block. And if you need to, have your chair handy. And we're going to work to kind of do a nice psoas release. Check in with our psoas. The psoas connects our upper body to our lower body from our spine all the way down through our pelvis and into our legs. So while we're standing on our block, we don't want to sink down into our hip or have our hips really, our pelvis really uneven. So check in and let's make sure our pelvis is even. And we're going to really engage our foot. So you can see my foot, my toes are spread, my foot's really engaged as if I'm still standing on the ground. And you can use your chair. And we're just going to swing. And I call this our psoas swing. We're just going to see how our psoas is today. Is it free to move? Is it feeling a little cranky? And you're not forcing this movement, you're just initiating the movement and seeing how your leg responds. And when you're done, we're going to gently step down. We can move our chair to the other side. With our right foot, we're going to step up onto our block. We're going to really engage that left foot, toes spread, arches active. Check in with our pelvis to make sure we haven't, lost or unintentionally hyped it up. So a good check is put your fingertips on your hip points and let's check in with that. Check in with your standing leg to make sure you haven't locked your knee out, and that foot is also engaged as well onto the block. And we're just going to check in with our psoas here. Not forcing the movement, but just letting it move. Letting your psoas be free. When you're done, we're going to step down, move our block, and bring our chair back. And this time we're going to turn our chair around. You're still going to need your block handy. So we're going to come back, have your block in your right or left hand, whichever you prefer. Come back to standing. We're going to ground again down through our feet. Root down, establish that foundation. And this time we're going to take our block and we're going to place it at this level in our upper thighs. So you're not down by your knees, but you're not up all the way up into your groin. And your feet now are about hip distance apart. And I can turn sideways. And our knees are bent. And we're grounded. And we're going to work on kind of stabilizing all of this and I say all of this, our pelvis and our spine as we're standing. And we're really looking to find that balance between freedom of movement and stability. And to do that, we're going to do some some deep inner work, but follow along and I think you'll find it enjoyable. If not, maybe just make a mental note of that and send me a question. But let's imagine right now we're standing, we're grounded, breathing, and we're going to imagine trying to stretch our mat apart with our feet. So we're stretching the mat apart with our feet. And you can feel, or I can feel, and maybe you may notice it in your body, but there's a nice release down through my sacrum, all the way down into my tailbone. And I almost imagine my tailbone swooping back behind me. My pelvis hasn't moved, but yet the visualization of when I spread the mat, my tailbone just moves backwards. Now the opposite of that is with our block, we're now going to press our block, press into our block with our thigh bones, our thighs, and we're going to see what that feels like and just observe. So I'm going to press. And I can imagine my tailbone now, it seems to want to drop a little bit and move forward. So almost like my tailbone swoops forward as I'm pressing into the block. Now to find that balance that we talked about between kind of freedom of movement yet strong stability, we're going to see if we can do both at the same time. So we're going to spread our mat with our feet and press into the block. And there's a nice, when I observe, there's a nice kind of aha moment of balance right there in my sacrum. It almost feels like it's very buoyant, it's very bouncy, it's very stable, but yet free and not locked tight either. So keep this in mind as we're moving through our practice today, this idea of pressing our mat with our feet apart, pressing into the block, also this nice melting of the block back. And this feeling of real stability within our hips and our pelvis and our sacrum and our spine. So let's take a few breaths here practicing this. So you can remove your block when you're ready, And your body will want to remember that. So this block is a nice kind of reminder to your body of that feeling of both spreading the mat and pressing into the block, melting that block back, and a real feeling of buoyancy in your sacrum and in your whole pelvic area, and especially support to your lumbar and your spine as we're moving. So let's get back to our practice. We're going to start with what I call a little playful hip mobility sequence. We're going to come standing. Remember our movement and our position. Remember the feeling of the block and the mat. Check in with your feet. We're going to shift our weight into our left foot. Point your right toes. Check in with that left foot, that your left gluteals are firm. You're grounding into your left foot. There's a lightness in your right foot, and we're just going to draw half circles with our foot, front to back. Come forward, half circle, front to back, forward, half circle, front to back. Come to center. Now let's reverse that, back, half circle to the front. If you're feeling kind of frisky, you might want to take your foot off the mat and half circle forward. We're not moving our pelvis. Our hip points are still in line with each other. We're just really kind of working the top of the femur as it's in your hip joint, kind of creating some movement here. When you're done, come back to center, shake it out. And we're going to repeat that on the other side. So bring your weight and your grounding into your right foot, pinky toes, come to your pinky toes on your left foot. Firm these gluteal muscles on your standing leg. Left foot taps forward, and we're going to draw some half circles. Draw those half circles. The next time you come back around to center, reach back and draw your half circles. You may notice one side may be a little bit more stiff than the other. And be sure and keep your grounding through your right foot. And when you're done, be done. Come back to center, shake it out. And finally, we're going to work on our hip flexors, do some strengthening and some mobility work before we go down into our final resting position. Let's move our chair. So here we are. We're going to bring our weight into our left foot again, firming down through our left foot, grounding. Gluteals are firmed. Don't forget to breathe in the breathing we practice. So let's take an inhale here. And on your next exhale, when it comes, think of that cinching and zipping. And lift your knee to right above your hip. Flex that foot. Take your fingers, wrap around the front of your knee. And if you need to, you can place your foot on your chair. This is a good opportunity to use your chair if you need it. If not, firm that standing leg, that left leg, down through your glutes. Find a drishti. We're going to press the top of our knee into our hand and imagine imagine your thigh bone melting down, your foot is active. If you're feeling adventurous today, you can remove the hand, come into kind of this spiral, pinky spiraled in, and release. So as rotate your hip externally, shine your ankle forward, and you're in a nice, strong, standing pose. When you're done, inhale, knee comes back up, exhale, cinch and zip. Come down to standing. That's some nice work for our hip flexors, really adding some strength. So let's come to the other side, right foot down, grounded. Find your arches, that grounding, toning into the gluteals. Come to your pinky toe. Inhale, exhale, cinch and zip. Knee rises. Fingertips interlace on front of the knee. Find your drishti. Press the top of the knee into the fingertips as you imagine your thigh bone melting down to the mat. Your left foot is engaged, almost sending, imagining all that energy coming down through your left foot, down to the mat. You can rest your foot on your chair if you need to. If not, knee is higher than hip. We're going to externally rotate our knee, shine our ankle forward. Hands come into kind of this goddess pose. And we're breathing, keeping that cinching and zipping. Inhale, exhale, down. So finally, as we're coming to the end of our standing sequence, let's do some nice hip circles. Just to kind of release everything. One direction, then the other. Let's come to standing and do one cleansing breath. One more. And just to kind of get everything back down to what we call, we did a lot of work on one side and the other. So let's try to, what we call, create some balance and bring some balance into our pelvis and some release on both sides. If you have a folded quarter-fold blanket, place it on your mat. When you come down to your mat, come down in a very intentional way. So I'm going to squat and then lower myself down. Taking a nice inhale, exhale. Keeping that cinching and zipping on my inhale. I'm going to lower myself down. Head is on a blanket. Feet are hip distance apart. At about a 90-degree angle. We're in constructive rest pose. And you can stay here in constructive rest pose for as long as you sense that your body needs it. If you feel like you need some additional balancing, on your next inhale, when you cinch and zip, raise one knee and the other knee. On your exhale, knees come in. Inhale, knees go out. Knees in. Inhale, knees out. And then place your feet back into constructive rest. And again, I invite you to stay here for as long as you need to. As long as you feel that your body needs some rest. When you're ready, shift your hips to the left, roll to the right, press yourself up, and we'll come to a seated position. So I hope you enjoyed this short practice today. It was just a short standing practice. Once you got through kind of orienting your breath to help with some hip mobility and hip strength, which is really important as we start to age. So thank you very much for being with me today. I'm Kenya Stump with Root Rise Yoga, and we'll see you next time. Thank you. Namaste.